again, the story of Joshua, it's not that I dislike the book of Joshua because it's complicated or it's confusing. The book of Joshua is absolutely clear. Absolutely clear. If you obey, things go well. If you disobey, things go badly. It's a lesson, and it's going to illustrate it rather clearly with the two cities that they're going to be taking. If you do what you're told, things go well. If you don't do what you're told, things go badly. It's a lesson that a 6-year-old can get in Sunday school. That's the reason why often we tell stories of Joshua, unfortunately, in Sunday school to children, because the lesson is rather simple. And the lesson goes like this. Chapter 3. Yeah, we'll do chapter 3. Early in the morning, Joshua arose and set out from Shittim with all the Israelites, and they came to the Jordan. And they camped there before crossing over. And at the end of 3 days, the officers went through the camp and commanded the people, when you see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God being carried by the Levitical priests, remember, Indiana Jones, right? Then you shall set out from your place and you follow it, so that you may know the way that you should go, because you just follow the golden box, right? So follow it so that you may know the way that you should go, because you haven't passed this way before, and yet there shall be a space between you and it, a distance of about 2,000 cubits, which is quite a ways. Don't come any nearer to it, right, because of the boundary thing. Then Joshua said to the people, sanctify yourselves, because tomorrow the Lord is going to do wonders among you. So the priest, to the priest Joshua said, take up the ark of the covenant, pass it on in front of the people. And so they took up the ark of the covenant, and they went in front of the people. They're doing exactly, I suspect that they do exactly what Joshua says, because otherwise they're going to be killed. So they take the ark. And the Lord said to Joshua, this day I'm going to begin to exalt you in the sight of all of Israel, so that they may know that I will be with you as I was with Moses. You're going to be the one who shall command the priests who bear the ark of the covenant. And this is what you command them. When you come to the edge of the waters of the Jordan, you stand still in the Jordan. Okay? So Joshua said to the Israelites, draw near and hear the words of the Lord your God. Joshua said, by this you shall know that among you is the living God, who without fail will drive out. God, who without fail will drive out from before you the Canaanites, Hittites, Hivites, Perizzites, Girgashites, Amorites, and Jebusites. You notice the picture that he's painting about what's going to happen as soon as they cross over. Empty Walmarts. Just for the taking, because there's not going to be anyone there. Because God's going to be driving them out before you. Just notice. The ark of the covenant of the Lord of all the earth is going to pass before you into the Jordan, and so now select 12 men from the tribes of Israel, one from each tribe. And when the soles of the feet of the priests who bear the ark of the Lord of all the earth, who rest in the waters of the waters of the Jordan, flowing from above, shall be cut off, and they're going to stand up in a single heap. You'll be able to see up the river, and it's like there's an invisible dam. Right? When the people set out from their tents to cross over the Jordan, the people bearing the ark of the covenant were in front of the people. Now the Jordan overflows all its banks. This isn't some sort of seasonal thing where suddenly the Jordan River sort of dries up and blah. It's not a natural thing, right? No, the Jordan overflows all its banks throughout the time of the harvest. So when those who bore the ark, so it's a flood, right, going on right now. So when those who bore the ark had come to the Jordan, and the feet of the priests bearing the ark were dipped in the edge of the water waters flowing from above stood still, rising up in a single heap as far as Adam. It's a city name. And the city that is beside Zaratan, or those flowing toward the sea of the Arabah, the Dead Sea, were wholly cut off. And so the water goes away, and suddenly you're looking up the river, and they're building up. While all Israel were crossing over on dry ground, the priests who bore the Ark of the Covenant stood on dry ground in the middle of the Jordan until the entire nation finished crossing over the Jordan. Just like we did when we left Egypt. We went on dry land through a sea. Even now, it's a nice inclusio, a nice bookend. Now we enter into the land on dry ground through a body of water. God says do it. Joshua says do it. They do it. Things go swimmingly. Sorry. jump. Chapter 5. Okay, we'll do this. Chapter 5, verse 2. At that time the Lord said to Joshua, make flint knives and circumcise the Israelites a second time. I don't know if you know anything about circumcision, but that's quite a trick. He doesn't mean. The reason for that is, so Joshua made flint knives and circumcised the Israelites as Gibeah Araloed. This is the reason why he circumcised them the second time. All the males of the people who came out from Egypt, all the warriors had died. You remember that? Book of Numbers, right? During the journey through the wilderness after they had come out of Egypt. Although the people who came out had been circumcised, yet the people born on the journey, right, as the children, right, Book of Numbers, right, they hadn't been circumcised. For the Israelites traveled 40 years in the wilderness until all the nation, the warriors, remember, because they didn't want to take the land, who came out of Egypt perished, not having listened to the voice of the Lord their God. To them the Lord swore that he would not let them see the land that he had sworn to their ancestors to give us, a land flowing with milk and honey, and so it was their children whom he raised up in their place that Joshua circumcised, because they were uncircumcised, because they had been circumcised on the way. I get the point, thank you. When the circumcising of all the nation was done, they remained in their places in the camp until they were healed. And the Lord said to Joshua, today I have rolled away from you the disgrace of Egypt, and so that place is called Gilgal, which is a city. Well, you know where it is. Just put it on the map. It's right near the Jordan River. So they keep the Passover. And verse 13 is an interesting thing. It's an interesting story. Once when Joshua was by Jericho, he looked up and he saw a man standing before him with a drawn sword in his hand. And so Joshua went to him and said to him, are you one of us or one of our adversaries? And he replied, neither. You see the word neither? There's no way to say neither in Hebrew. That's a translational thing. The word that's used here is no. Because you see, Joshua, it seems to me, being Joshua, sees everybody as either for me or against me. You're either an ally or you're an enemy. You're either for us or against us. And so he asks the man, which one are you? And the man replies, no. It's not even a good question. It's not the point. No. As commander of the army of the Lord, I have now come. And Joshua fell on his face to the earth and worshipped. And he said to him, what do you command your servant, my Lord? And the commander of the army of the Lord said to Joshua, remove the sandals from your feet, for the place where you stand is holy. And Joshua did that. Sound familiar? Sounds exactly like?
Moses.
Moses in the burning bush. Exactly. It's the call of Moses. It's an interesting story. I mean, you can take that story out and the story holds together perfectly. And for me at least, I think that story in there says a lot about the way in which Joshua sees things and very often the way in which we see things. Starting in chapter 6, we have the story of Jericho. And again, it's not a complicated story. It's not a complicated story at all. Joshua was shut up inside and out because of the Israelites. Jericho was shut up inside and out. So they have both gates closed because of the Israelites. No one came out, no one went in. They're getting ready for a siege. The Lord said to Joshua, look, I've handed Jericho over to you along with its king and its soldiers. You should march around the city. Well, of course you march around the city because you're going to siege it, right? You march around the city, all the warriors circling the city once, and that's what you do for 6 days. There's 7 priests bearing the 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark. On the 7th day, you march around the city. This is complicated. Take this down. City 7 times, the priests blowing the trumpets. And then when they make a long blast with the ram's horn, as soon as you hear the sound of the trumpet, then all the people shall shout with a great shout. And the wall of the city is going to fall down well, this isn't what I was expecting. I was expecting you sort of go around the city and then you hang out for 2 or 3 years until the city's decimated. All fall down flat, and all the people shall charge straight ahead. And so Joshua the son of Nun summoned the priests and said to them, take up the Ark of the Covenant and have the 7 priests carry the 7 trumpets of ram's horns in front of the Ark of the Lord. To the people he said, go forward and march around the city, have the armed men pass on before the Ark of the Lord. And Joshua commanded the people. The 7 priests carrying the 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the Lord went forward, blowing the trumpets with the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord following them, and the armed men went on before the priests who blew the trumpets. The rear guard came after the Ark, while the trumpets blew continually. To the people Joshua gave this command, don't shout. Don't say a bloody word, right? Don't say anything. Don't whisper. Don't utter a word until the day I tell you to shout. Then you shout. And so the Ark of the Lord went around the city, circling it once, and then they came into the camp, and they spent the night at the camp. Joshua rose early in the morning, and the priests took up the Ark of the Lord, the 7 priests carrying the 7 trumpets of the ram's horns. Notice how pedantic this is? I mean, just notice. I think it's pedantic for a reason, right? The 7 priests carrying the 7 trumpets of the ram's horns before the Ark of the Lord passed on, blowing the trumpets continually. The armed men went on before them. The rear guard came after the Ark of the Lord, while the trumpets blew continually. On the 2nd day, they marched around the city once, and then they returned to the camp. And because I think I would go crazy if that was repeated for 5 more times, the narrator just comes in and says that's what they did for 6 days. You notice, up to this point, Israel has been remarkably reticent about obeying. Ever since they left Egypt. Obedience has not been their strong point. But here, when there's a chance that they might get something, oh, they love to obey. Down to the letter. They don't utter a word. This is Israel. They don't utter a word. 6 days. They do exactly what they're told. On the 7th day, they rose early at dawn. They marched around the city in the same manner 7 times this time. It was only on that day that they marched around the city 7 times. It's absolutely remarkable. The original instructions, I mean, when you read them, they're actually kind of complicated if you're like just hearing them for the first time, and yet they do it exactly the same manner 7 times. It was only on that day that they marched around the city 7 times. And at the 7th time, when the priests had blown the trumpets, Joshua said to the people, shout, because the Lord is giving you the city. And the city and all that is in it shall be devoted to the destruction, to the Lord for destruction, right? Just like we read in Deuteronomy, right? So these cities here, wipe them out. Nothing left. Everything's devoted to, and again, this is, you read columns. Cherem. Say Cherem. Say Cherem. Cherem. Yeah, it's Cherem. And Cherem is a type of warfare in which, again, you wipe out everything. The point isn't to get anything. The point is just to exterminate. Men, women, children, infants, animals, pets, goldfish, everything. And all the stuff, you destroy it. That's what he says. Verse 18, as for you, you keep away from the things devoted to destruction, so as not to covet and take any of the devoted things and make the camp of Israel an object for destruction, bringing trouble upon it. Remember that, that's going to come up later. All the silver and all the gold, all the vessels of bronze and irons are sacred to the Lord. They go into the treasury of the Lord. You don't get them. So the people shouted, And the trumpets were blown, and as soon as the people heard the sound of the trumpets, they raised a great shout, and the wall fell down flat. So the people charged straight ahead into the city and captured it. And then they devoted to destruction by the edge of the sword everything in the city. Men, women, young, old, oxen, sheep, and donkeys. At the end of that, that's what you could hear. Nothing. A sneeze. Yeah. That's what you could hear. You would hear nothing. Again, the lesson is very simple. You do what you're told to do, and things go great. Second half of that is right here in chapter 7. But the Israelites broke faith in regard to the devoted things. Achan, the son of Carmi, the son of Zabdi, the son of Zerah, of the tribe of Judah, took some of the devoted things, and the anger of the Lord burned against the Israelites. Joshua sent men from Jericho to Ai. Ai is a Hebrew word meaning ruin or rubble. I mean, there's not much, again, it's not a fortified city, it's just a little village. He sent men from Jericho to Ai, which is near Beth Aven, east of Bethel, and he said to them, "Go up and spy out the land." And so, oh my God. I've heard this before. Didn't wind up so well last time. Right? Yeah, go up and spy out the land. Men went up and they spied out Ai, and then they returned to Joshua and they said to him, "Not all the people need to go up. Only about 2,000 or 3,000 should go up and attack Ai. They're so few, right? Don't make the whole people go up there. That's silly, right? It's like sending out a battalion against an ant or something like that. Right? And so about 3,000 of the people went up from there, and they fled before the people of Ai. Whoa, what happened, right? The men of Ai killed about 36 of them, chasing them from outside the city as far as Shebarim and killing them on the slope. And the hearts of the people melted, and they turned to water, and then Joshua tore his clothes. And he fell on the ground on his face before the ark of the Lord until the evening, and he and the elders of Israel, and they put dust on their heads. Obviously they were mourning, something's wrong. And Joshua said, "Ah, Lord God, why have you brought this people across the Jordan at all to hand us over to the Amorites so as to destroy us? Would that we had been content to settle beyond the Jordan. Oh Lord, what can I now say? That Israel has turned their backs on their enemies. The Canaanites and all the inhabitants of the land are going to hear of it and surround us and cut off our name from the earth. And then what are you going to do for your blah, 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 blah," right? Complaining, right? Just like they did in the wilderness. This is what Joshua's doing, right? He complains. And the Lord said to Joshua, "Stand up. Jeez, what are you doing? Why are you falling on your face? It's not difficult. Let me explain something. Right? Right? If you do well, if you do what you're supposed to do, things are going to be fine. Right? Why are you falling on your face? Israel sinned. Duh. They've transgressed my covenant that I imposed on them. They've taken some of the devoted things. They've stolen. They've acted deceitfully, right? They've lied about it. And they've put them among their own belongings. And therefore the Israelites are unable to stand before their enemies. They turn their backs on their enemies because they have become a thing devoted to destruction themselves, right? Because you take a little bit of Jericho, you become Jericho. I'm not going to be with you anymore unless you destroy the devoted things from among you. Proceed to sanctify the people, right? Set them apart, right? And say, sanctify yourselves from tomorrow, because thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, there are devoted things among you, O Israel, and you're going to be unable to stand before your enemies until you take away the devoted things from among you. In the morning, therefore, you should bring forth tribe by tribe. And the tribe that the Lord takes shall come near by clans, and the clan that the Lord takes shall come near by households, and the household that the Lord takes shall come by one, and the one who is taken as having the devoted thing shall be burned with fire, together with everything that he has.